another Laser99 rant. This is a rant about the structures of comic books and the way I think they should probably be handled in the future. Let me just tell you what got me thinking about this. I was reading my book, Supergirl Volume 3 Sanctuary, which, by the way, is a really good book. This whole series is really good, actually. And I was reading it, and then the first issue starts off right where the last volume ended, and you're like, okay, the story's continuing, and it looks pretty cool, and I'm wondering, where is the story going? And all of a sudden, whoa! There's a giant Kryptonian monster in front of her, and she's with Superman. I'm like, what the heck? Where did that happen? And all of a sudden, it goes on to the whole Hell on Earth storyline. Hell being spelled, of course, H''E''L. Now, the whole thing that the rest of the book, not all of it, but most of the rest of the book is all intermittent of the parts of the story on Hell on Earth. And since I wasn't reading the other Superman at the time, I was getting half of that story and wondering, what the heck is going on? Who's this Hell guy? What does he want? Why does Supergirl trust him? What's going on? And so it wasn't until I figured, okay, if I know half the story, I want to know the rest. So I eventually bought Hell on Earth, the trade of the full story, and realized, and I got the other parts mixed in and realized where the story went and why it was like that and whatnot. But to me, it was very confusing to just be reading one story, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's right into an event story in the trades. Now, people might ask, well, wait a minute, trades are just like that way, because you have to collect all the issues, and that's all trades are. They're collecting the single issues of the story. But I'm thinking, enough! I don't want to, if I buy a Supergirl book, I don't want to see half of Superman's story splice into this book. I want to read just about Supergirl book. And this was further demonstrated when I was looking to buy Death of the Family, because everyone had been talking about it and looking forward to it, so I'm like, okay. And so I looked in, and Batman Volume 3 wasn't out yet, so I'm like, okay, so they don't have it. But then I saw this, and it said Joker, Death of the Family. So I'm thinking, oh boy, this is just the thing that has all of it, from Batgirl to Nightwing to the Batman books, has the full story in it. I'm like, okay, good. So I bought it, and I couldn't look at it ahead of time because it had, you know, the covering over it, so I couldn't look through it and see what it did have. Oh, it has the side stories of Nightwing and of Batgirl and of Red Hood and the Outlaws, which and of Robin and whatnot, and them fighting against the Joker. And it has the very last issue of them fighting. It has the very last issue where everything wraps up. Problem is, besides that issue, it has absolutely none of this. This only has the last issue of this. So I'm looking through this story, seeing, okay, this person's captured, the Joker has all of them. And then all of a sudden, next thing I turn the page, and Batman's captured as well. I'm like, what the, how the heck did that happen? Weren't you going to show me that in your Joker story? Shouldn't your story called, that says The Joker, Death of the Family, have, you know, the Batman part of the story in it? Shouldn't this be the complete collection? But no, apparently it's a collection of all the side stories, of all the little things in between what happens in Death of the Family, which wasn't made clear from the picture. And so, looking at it and seeing all of these side stories, I'm just like, at the end, I'm like, I didn't need to see any of these. Mostly because they're very repetitive. Not that they're bad or anything, it's just, a lot of the stories are this. I like Nightwing's arc in this the best, but a lot of the stories is repetitive. They go, each one of these people, they'll go up against the Joker, and the Joker takes them down and captures them. That's basically the whole gist of it. And all the real interpersonal stuff between Batman and the Joker is in this book, Batman Volume 3. Now, you could say maybe it's kind of false advertising that when it looks like what it is the collection of all the Death of the Family, but it's truly only the collection of most of it and leaves out the most essential storytelling. Maybe it's false advertising, maybe not. Either way, it was just, it seems like it's a strategy to have people spending more money than they need to. And you might be saying, DC and their New 52, they must be like, don't cut Marvel that slack just yet. I have something that I want to talk about this. Okay, so I'm reading All New X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. I'm loving the books. They're great. And so I'm reading my Volume 3 of X-Men Out of Their Depth. And I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, okay, this is cool. It ends with not even a big fight, with just basically of the all-new X-Men. If you don't know, the story is about the original X-Men from the past coming to the present. And so I'm looking through the story, I'm like, okay, so it's basically about them establishing themselves in the present and not really knowing what their purpose is and what their place is and stuff like that. A whole bunch of good character stuff going on. Good. And I don't have it here, I couldn't find it, but the Uncanny X-Men ends with like, what did it end with? The Uncanny X-Men stuff, they were just doing normal stuff, and I don't remember what exactly it ended with, but it was basically normal stuff. I get Uncanny X-Men Volume 4. And all of a sudden, the all-new X-Men are part of the Uncanny X-Men. I'm like, whoa, what happened here? I was really, really confused. I'm like, wait a minute. And this issue, they were all against Scott and his Uncanny X-Men. And this issue, they're joining him? What the heck happened? And while the end of that run had a story that kind of explained parts of it, I still didn't really know the whole story. So I thought, I went out of order. I bought Uncanny X-Men before All New X-Men Volume 4. So maybe when I buy All New X-Men Volume 4, it'll explain it all better. Nope, not really. In this issue, I turned the page, and the first page is basically Angel saying, finally, you jerks have come to your senses, with the all-new X-Men joining the Uncanny X-Men. So I'm really confused. I'm like, when did this decision happen? So I'm really scanning the pages, and so then there's this big fight scene, not fight scene, but this big argument between Beast and Jean Grey, who, spoilers, they're kind of a couple. They're not exactly like, they're still working things out. So, but he's arguing with her about these future X-Men. He's like, why? And she's like, I knew that these future X-Men were up to something, and you didn't want to hear it, so and she's like, so you went to Scott, so you like him more. It's like, no, that's not it. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I have every single issue of All New X-Men, and every single, trade. I have every single trade of All New X-Men, and every single trade of Uncanny X-Men, and I'm looking around, I'm like, there's no other X-Men books going on except for the one Amazing X-Men, which is about Nightcrawler returning, which has absolutely nothing to do with All New X-Men, so what the heck is going on? Looking up online afterwards, I find that there's this story that was called Age of the Atom or something like that. I don't remember what it was. I finally ordered it. That has the missing piece in between. But I'm feeling really gypped when I have this two stories that are continuing the main story of these two X-Men franchises. They're continuing, and all of a sudden, you have to buy the side book. Well, me here, I live in the country. I don't actually see the books as they're coming out onto the comic book shelves. I'm ordering a lot of these books online. So I'm looking, and there's no reference to this. It doesn't say, like, comic books usually, when people talk about stuff that's happened in previous issues, especially if it's in another trade, there'll be a little note in the corner that says, like, this happened in blah blah blah, or look to issue 60 for this, or blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. Either way, there's usually some reference. There was nothing like that in this. I'm like, what are they talking about? Why are they talking about it? And what the heck is going on? This really seems like a way for DC to double their profits. Or not DC, just comics to double their profits where they can get you, like, maybe not so much with the Marvel thing, because that's just kind of just confusing story structuring. But for DC, for example, let's see. Here's Batgirl Volume 3 that I got. Now, the first, let's see, up to about here. Wait, maybe a little farther. This whole part of the story, which is more than half, is all about Batgirl's Joker arc. And the final issue in here is actually the issue that's in, I gotta get it, the final issue that's in there, that book, Batman Volume 3. So this kind of spoils the end of Batman Volume 3, because I bought this first. And so it just spoils the end of it. And so, but I have to get this, and since I already bought this, even though I already have this half of the story in here, I had to get this because it continues the story. There's still like 4 issues, maybe not 4, but about like 3 or 4 issues afterwards that have more story. And so I have to get both the trades of the main story, and I have to get the trade that has that big event going on and the main story in it. So it's really a way, like, I have multiple comics that have parts of the same story in it. I hate that. I don't need 2 versions of the same story. Look, I'm not a collector. I don't give diddly squat about, oh, this is in mint condition with prime retail price. I don't know. As I say, I'm not a collector. I don't care. I want the story. The last thing I need is 2 parts of that same story. I don't need the same story twice. Or in some cases, 3 times. And you might ask, well, what's your solution? I mean, this is just the way it is. You buy the trades as they're coming out, and if you want a compilation of the same story, you have to buy a compilation book. And they might have some overlapping issues. Issues are the problem. I'm going to say it right now. I think that comic book issues are not the way to sell comic books anymore. There's no other way for me to explain it. I have ceased to buy any more comic book issues. I bought like 1 last month, and that's only because I was really bored and had to wait somewhere, and the issue was Justice League, and they were in Canada, so I kind of had to. But anyways, comic book issues, I think, are an outdated form of selling comic books. And I don't mean digital comic books are the answer. I mean just individual issues. I've touched on this in other rants and whatnot before, but I seriously think that issues are an outdated mode of selling comic books. Behold Superman Earth 1. These trades of Superman Earth 1 and Batman Earth 1 came out just as the trade. There was no issues. It sold individual issues before it, and there was none that came out after the trade was released. All that was released was the trade. Now, the reason I want to bring this up is because the reason I think that these are an outdated mode of telling stories is because, look at this. But this is original. This is Uncanny X-Men Volume 1. This story had to end on a reveal. What was the reveal? The reveal was that Magneto was working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and is gonna use that to against Cyclops and his mutant revolution, which he kind of isn't. But anyway, then here's the all-new X-Men number 11. What was it revealed? This one was revealed how, oh, they were just flying their jet, and all of a sudden the Avengers pulled them over and they want to have a talk when nothing really big happens in the next issue. They just have a talk, and Scott talks to his younger brother. You see what I mean? Every single issue has to leave on some sort of fake cliffhanger just to dick the audience around. We're not in the age where we need, like, movie serials to leave us on a, will he get out of this one? Oh no! Will he crash and burn, or will he survive? We don't need that anymore. You look at a story of Superman Earth 1, and in it, there is no mid-cliffhangers. There are reveals in the story, but they flow naturally, and they smoothly flow throughout the story. Each time I read a trade that's read by issues, sometimes it feels like it takes a break every few pages. You read it and they're like, okay, break now let's go back to the story. You know, it feels like there's a pacing break at that point, and it doesn't always seem to pick up right where it left off. Now, good comics can have it pick up right where it left off, but you have stuff like this that when it leaves on a cliffhanger, the next time you read the issue, the cliffhanger's not that really big. I mean, it's just a little, oh, here you go moment, and that's it. Because you can't always have a cliffhanger reveal to something huge, or else you're just going to stretch the audience's patience thin. I mean, the second volume of Superman Earth 1 had a little bit of a reveal, and not necessarily a cliffhanger, but a surprise reveal at the end of the book. that was at the end of the book, you know, so it had one major surprise reveal, and that's it. You have a 6-issue story. That means you're going to have at least 5 surprise reveals in the story. Because you have to try, in the way Kermit comics are structured, you have to try to entice the reader to need the next issue. Look, if I got good characters and I got good action and good art, I don't care if there's a big oh no moment coming up. I want to just read the good story. Comic books that are structured in the way that they have to have some enticing thing to bring the reader back, I think is going to eventually, maybe it won't ever bite the companies in the butt, because if it hasn't yet, then I don't know if it ever will. But I think that if we ever want comics to structured in a way that makes the story flow naturally, we need more stories that are just trades. Just the specific story in this thing. I would be fine of the Hell on Earth storyline if it just was in a Hell on Earth graphic novel. If they didn't have any tie-ins to the Supergirl book, and also I'm reading a Supergirl book that's thrown into this story, and only half of this book is in here, so I still have to buy this book, but if I wanted to buy this book, which eventually I did, but I have to get basically multiple issues of the same story in here. Why didn't they just have just this story and have Supergirl stuff stay in Supergirl? So you can have Supergirl involved in this Hell on Earth storyline without pushing her issues in here. That's why I say comic book issues are unnecessary and only are around because of out of nostalgia. We only have comic book issues around because we want the old feel of them. You know, that's how they were originally made, so that's how they should be originally made. No other business in the world, except for television, sells their products this way. This would be like selling 1/6 of a movie at a time. 1/6. It'd be like you watch the first 20 minutes of Star Wars. Okay, well, you have to wait a week to see the rest. Next 20 minutes, and then the next 20 minutes the next week. No other thing does this way except for the reason I say except for television is because of stuff like iTunes and whatnot. You can buy individual episodes of television shows online and just buy those specific episodes. So television has something similar to that, but in the end, television always has a TV season that you can buy and just buy the whole season and get it all together. And you don't normally have to... In fact, for the iTunes, you can buy the whole season before it's all released, and it will automatically download itself onto your computer. For comic books, I have so many times where I'm buying multiple issues of the same comic book, and look, I don't have enough money to spend it that way. So, that's it. I'm done. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm LazyDude99. Finally like it. It's not worth it. Trades are the future, issues are the past. Don't let the issues of the past affect the future.
Be sure to check out more of my other videos on my channel, and wait for more coming soon.